Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Here in this video, I will discuss what happened in markets today, the sell-off that seemingly happened for no reason, and what this implies for next week. Now, we will also talk Tesla and what could be coming next for Tesla stock. First and foremost, before we get to Tesla stock, markets seemingly out of nowhere started to sell off. Now, markets were up a lot, really big tech driven, because nothing has really changed. And there was some good news, some bad news with the economic data this morning that pushed people into the big tech trade. I also think there was a bit of a gamma squeeze going on in big tech. You've seen a lot of option activity earlier in the trading day that kind of fizzled out. So I think that's part of the selling that you've seen towards the end of the day today. And that's a very problematic sign. We'll discuss that in just a moment. I'm specifically concerned about big tech for next week because big tech has rallied a lot. Expectations are high. These stocks are sitting at or near all-time highs. And if you don't get impressive earnings, we're going to have a problem on our hands. Now, I also believe the election is probably going to start taking more precedence in markets as well coming next week, which is also going to be a problem because we really haven't priced in any recession. We haven't priced in any recession risk, but we haven't priced in any election risk, and we're just 10 days or so away from the election itself. So next week is when you could start to see some of those concerns come to a head for markets. Now, normally in the month of October, towards the end of October, you do normally see a 5 to 10% pullback before an election. We have not seen that with the S&P that is roughly trading about 1.3% still just away from all-time highs. If you do start to see a larger election correction start to get priced into markets, that could easily send stocks down the average 5 to 7%. But if you mix in there some okay big tech earnings, not impressive, but okay earnings, that is probably going to push those stocks down as well. And this year's a little different because the concentration in the S&P is so large in your big tech names. Any more dramatic weakness in those stocks is going to have a larger outsized effect on the broader index. So I do think a lot of today's end of the day selling that you've seen where markets pretty much sold off after about 1 p.m. today, Eastern Standard Time, the last 3 hours of the trading day were pretty rough. I think a lot of that does have to do with the election and some of those fears starting to come out, the uncertainty starting to come out for next week. Now, everyone believes there's going to be some kind of delayment to actually see the election results, who is actually going to be the president, who takes control of the Senate. And that's also going to add another wall of worry. And if the markets are a discounting mechanism, if we expect we won't know the results right away, and Wall Street's fearful about that, if we expect it, then we're probably going to price it in. And I think that's another kind of wall of worry that markets may have to start climbing next week. So I think it makes sense why markets are falling a little bit today. And I think they probably should fall a little bit more to price in some of this risk again coming next week. I think the odds of next week being a green week, a good week for markets, pretty low, maybe 20%. I think there's probably an 80% chance that we do get further downside for markets. Again, earnings, they're not going to be spectacular. They're going to be okay. And these stocks are priced for great news, essentially, and great guidance. And any small hiccups, especially in AI, are going to be a problem, not just for the companies reporting earnings, but even NVIDIA that reports next month, right? I think Wall Street's going to try to, extrapolate what CapEx budgets mean for NVIDIA, whether they are going up, going down, just kind of staying where they previously were guided for. All of that will be important. And I think we're just priced for pretty much perfection at this point, let alone the election issues that poses to markets. Now, Tesla stock today, as you've seen, was up about 2%. Despite the selling we've seen in markets, Tesla kind of sold off a little bit in the beginning of the trading day, bounced back a bit, sold off a bit, and then kind of held that 2% gain for most of the day today. I do think that's a good sign that if we get some volatility here, if we do get some downside corrective volatility in markets, Tesla does not need to fall a lot. Yes, I think Tesla would fall to some degree. Tesla's not immune to what happens in the markets, but as long as it's something on the smaller side, let's say 3 to 5% downside in the S&P, I don't think Tesla necessarily needs to react to that. I mean, yesterday was the second best day in the history of Tesla being listed on the public markets, and the option activity was almost the highest we have ever seen yesterday. The call option activity, I should say. So from that standpoint, I think there's a lot of momentum behind Tesla. And if you're in Tesla, great, you're going to love that. If you are not, if you want to short Tesla, personally, not financial advice, I would stay far away from betting against Tesla at this point, even if markets do come down. Just like we seen today, just because markets fall does not mean Tesla needs to fall. And actually, in a weird way, with the kind of results that Tesla posted for earnings, the guidance that we got from Elon Musk, the new vehicles coming, all of that, I mean, you could actually say that Tesla could be a hedge if the markets fall. If Tesla is treated that way, if buying pressure does actually come into Tesla as markets fall, that's kind of what we've seen today. If that were to happen on a larger scale next week, Tesla stock could just continue higher. Let's face it, if you really want to bet on big tech, if you want to bet on AI, if you want to bet on a growth story that's starting to grow and will be growing more in 2025, Tesla, out of all the other big tech names, is by far the most attractive. Still down 40% from all-time highs that you achieved in late 2021, and none of the other big tech names you can say that about. So I'm not sold on the whole narrative that Tesla is going to fall alongside the markets. Is that possible? Of course, but I don't think that needs to be a rule of thumb. Now, the S&P, you could see, had a pretty nasty wick here. Typically, when you get these wicks that are high on the upside, that tends to mean buyers got exhausted, sellers stepped in and pushed the stock lower into the end of the day. That can signal a reversal, just like, large bottom wicks can be seen as reversal to the upside, right? Like you've seen back here in September, markets kind of sold off, bottomed out for a couple days, and then you got this big wick where sellers tried to push the markets down. They could not. They failed. Buyers stepped in and sent the markets higher into the end of the day, and that sparked the latest rally that we have seen, right, ever since mid-September or so. That's kind of where we are now. This wick does not look great for the bulls. Now, next week, if the earnings slate wasn't enough, if the election wasn't enough, you're also going to have a lot of economic data as well. On Monday, Dallas Fed Manufacturing Index will be coming out at 9:30 in the morning or 10:30 in the morning on Monday. On Tuesday, you're going to get S&P Case-Shiller home price month over month and year over year. JOLTS job openings that come out at 10 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday. Wholesale inventories, retail inventories, Dallas Fed Services revenue, CB consumer confidence, and home price index month over month and year over year. On Wednesday, you are going to get a lot of data out of Europe, but you will get the ADP employment change, expecting 110,000 net job ads in the private sector. So that'll be important. We also get GDP growth rate quarter over quarter advanced data for Q3. So GDP back in focus coming next Wednesday. And let's see, there's so many smaller data points, pending home sales month over month and year over year. And then on Thursday, you get the inflation rate out of Europe, not really a big deal, but you do get core PCE month over month coming out Wednesday at 8:30 in the morning, personal income month over month, and personal spending month over month, as well as another report of initial jobless claims, continuing jobless claims, employment costs, benefits, wages, and the index there. Sheesh. Fed balance sheet comes out, and that is it. Friday, you get non-farm payrolls and the unemployment rate. We're currently expecting 140,000 non-farm payrolls. That would be down sharply from 254,000 that we had last month, and the unemployment rate is expected to stay steady, it looks like, as far as the consensus at 4.1%. The forecast here has it rising to 4.2%. So guys, I mean, let's just be real here. The election, that's an issue the markets are likely going to price in as, bad news. Stock's probably going to fall on that. Earnings, yes, the bar is low, but not for big tech. Big tech still has a high bar. And I just don't think it's going to be impressive enough to beat that. And then you have economic data, which any of those major economic data points, JOLTS job openings or the unemployment rate, the non-farm payrolls, any of that data could totally derail markets. Besides the election issue or besides earnings, it's also the data that will be important, that could cause a lot of volatility in markets. So election, mega cap tech earnings, 5 companies over $1 trillion market cap apiece reporting, and economic data. I don't think that's a favorable setup for next week. And I think that's part of why markets sold off into the close today. But again, if you're all in Tesla, you're a Tesla bull or whatnot, I don't think that necessarily means that Tesla stock needs to sell off. Clearly, we'll see what happens. But Tesla could actually catch a bid as the markets sell off, which is what happened today. And that's something I will be looking out for. As I also talked about in previous videos, Tesla did have a lot of short covering activity over the past 2 days or so. Not today. Today, you're seeing 6.3 million shares on net that are actually being sold short. So there is a selling pressure on Tesla today via the shorts. But short sellers in the past 48 hours have lost over $4 billion in their short positions against Tesla. If Tesla does rally from here, if I'm wrong, let's say, and markets have a great next week, and Tesla stock continues to go higher, I think you're really going to start to get to that point where it starts to snowball. Above 270, Tesla looks very likely to hit 300. And at that point, the losses are going to start accumulating at a very fast rate. Option activity was decent today. You had 244 different trades totaling $138.5 million with a positive order value of 54%. But yesterday you had $1.1 billion in option activity with a positive order value of 89%. And like I said, yesterday was one of the largest days we've seen of call option activity in Tesla. When you tend to get that, you usually see a follow through. It's not just a 2-day, said and done rally for Tesla, especially now with a 20+% move. This was, again, the second best day for Tesla stock in the history of Tesla stock on the stock market. And the only other time that was better than yesterday was a 24% gain back in 2013. Yeah, yesterday was the strongest day you've seen for Tesla stock since 2013. That's crazy. So sure, could Tesla consolidate here? Could Tesla fall a little bit? Sure, that's possible, although I wouldn't draw that conclusion that needs to happen if the markets consolidate or fall from here. But after whatever correction we do get, I think Tesla stock is going much, much higher, and you certainly don't want to bet on Tesla stock at that point. And any dip you do get in Tesla, I think, is a solid, buying opportunity, at least from my standpoint. So let me know what you think about this information down below in the comment section. Hit the like button as well as subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. You guys have a great weekend. Stay safe out there, and I will see you in the next one.